Hi, this is TapCat, and today I want to give you an update on what's going on with the channel. Now, for starters, it's been a month since I last uploaded a video, and I want to let you know why. Right after I recorded part 3 of Fallout New Vegas, I came down with a bug. And there was nothing extraordinary about it. It's the kind of thing that millions of people catch every year. But what made this one problematic in particular for me was that the first thing it took out was my voice. And it was also the last thing to come back. So for a good couple of weeks, I couldn't really talk, and certainly recording a video for YouTube was just not a thing that was possible. So then, just as I started feeling better, my PC conked out on me. And I mean completely. I literally could not even boot it up. For reasons that I still don't understand, my machine decided that Windows was not installed on my boot drive, so it wouldn't recognize it. And I spent a lot of hours first trying to troubleshoot that with no success. Finally, I ended up having to buy a new hard drive, install Windows clean from scratch, and then reinstall all of my software that goes on the machine and reconfigure it and all of that. So that was a major time sink that dragged on for a good while. Then, on top of that, my work schedule mushroomed on me. And so I really just, by the time I would come home from work, I had no energy or in very little time. And so again, recording was just something that I wasn't really up for at that point. And the amazing thing, that's not even all. I actually had more computer problems, like my router conking out on me and the other things that cropped up. So no one thing was really that big of a deal. But just for the last month, I have kind of had that weird curse hanging over my head, seemingly, of just one thing after another happening that made recording videos, if not impossible, extremely difficult. So I haven't done that. I have done other things, but not recorded videos. So the good news is that I am going to start recording again. That's my plan, at least. I should knock on wood because something else could happen before I get to do that. So what am I going to record? What am I going to do? When am I going to do it? So the first thing I have to say is, unfortunately, the Fallout New Vegas series is done. I tried going back into the game, and the problem with that game in particular, I was really doing it as kind of a lark. I never intended to play the full game, but I thought, let's just try to have fun exploring the world and making my own story to the extent the game would let me. For however long, I was enjoying that, and you were enjoying watching. And the problem is getting interrupted like that, especially so early in the proceedings. I've loaded the game again, and I walked around a little bit, but it's just been too long. So I could go through the motions of playing, but any connection I felt to the story, to the character, it's gone. It's a little bit like if you started watching a movie and you got through the first 15 minutes and then you were interrupted and you couldn't continue watching it. And a month later, you had a chance to pick it up again from the exact spot you stopped watching. It's been too long. 10 minutes later, sure. Or in the case of the game, a couple of days later, no worries. Even a week later. But yeah, at this point, I just can't get back into it again. So I'm very sorry if you wanted to see more. I wanted to see more too. I was really having a good time with that because it's just so different from what I normally play. But Fallout New Vegas is over. So what am I going to do next? I'm looking at 2 games in particular, Darkest Dungeon and Banner Saga. So Darkest Dungeon I talked about before, and I was thinking I would wait until the DLC. They still have not announced a date for that other than spring. And that's actually kind of problematic now for me too, because recently From Software announced that they are doing a remaster of Dark Souls, and that's going to come out on May 25th. And I will tell you right now, my intention is to be playing that game on May 25th. And my fear is that when Red Hook says Darkest Dungeon is going to come out in spring, they mean May or June. So that means I won't be playing it then anyway, because Dark Souls is going to be my number 1 priority. So I'm thinking I may play Darkest Dungeon now so that I'm done before Dark Souls comes out. So that's one option. The other option is the Banner Saga. Now, if you're not familiar with Banner Saga, It's essentially if you took XCOM and put it in a setting heavily inspired by Norse mythology, but like during Ragnarok, because this world is in the midst of ending, and you're not so much trying to save the world as you are just trying to survive for as long as you can. It's a very stark, somewhat gloomy game, but it's also really beautifully done. And it's not really, like literally XCOM, because you do have bows, so there are some ranged weapons, but most of the combat is melee. And the combat, while you're on a similar map to XCOM, it does feel pretty different. Also, Banner Saga has a lot more story going on than XCOM does. So those are the two games, and I am going to put up a poll. In fact, you should see a little icon in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And if you click on it, you'll have the option to vote. Now for Darkest Dungeon, I'm going to give you two choices. Either one will count towards playing Darkest Dungeon. But what I'd like to know is, if that is your preference, would you rather see me play on Radiant difficulty or Darkest, which is like normal? The difference between the two, Radiant is supposedly the easiest difficulty, but that's not really true. It's largely identical to Darkest, except for the fact that the campaign is shorter. There's more grinding and you have to do more missions. And by the way, for those of you who aren't familiar with Darkest Dungeon, it's a very long campaign. Like there's literally an achievement for completing the campaign in less than 100 missions. So on Radiant, I think I might be able to finish it in something like, 85 or 90 or something like that. I'm not sure. I've only played one campaign and I was going very slowly on purpose. So I played way over 100 missions. My fear is that on Darkest, it will also be well over 100. So understand that if you're voting for that, you're saying you want to watch like 100, 120 missions. I don't even know how much it is. I think they're called quests, but you get the idea. Think about that. Which would you rather see? I know a lot of people, they just want to see the higher difficulty level no matter what. But remember this too. If we play on Radiant, what I would probably consider doing, no, I would definitely consider it, and I would probably actually do, is there's ways to make the game more difficult aside from the settings. So like we can use less torchlight when we're in a dungeon and make it harder that way if we're doing, quote, too well. But I'm not going to play on the hardest difficulty though. Like that kind of takes away the fun for me. So we can talk about it more if I do play Darkest Dungeon, but those are the two choices, Radiant or Darkest, for Darkest Dungeon. And then also if you would be more interested in Banner Saga. Now that's the opposite of Darkest Dungeon in terms of campaign length. It's probably like half the length of an XCOM campaign. I think it'd probably be something like between 30 to 35, installments. So that would be way more bite-sized, relatively speaking. All right, that's probably enough on all that stuff. Let me know what you think. And hopefully once you make your voice known, I can, I'll record a few to get ahead a little bit, and then I can start uploading videos. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. I hope we see you next time.